And we learned from a scientist, Ingrid Visser, that if we go underwater and we click our fingers, it makes a sound not dissimilar to what the orca are using, and that kind of brings them in a little closer. So we had a few little tricks like that to help us out.
How are you? Where are you at?
We're just outside of DC.
Okay.
Maryland, and there's offices in Silver Spring.
Okay. So that's where the production was happening, actually?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Where are you?
I'm in Chicago.
Oh, okay, great.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I mean, I wish I had the other Brian too on this call to ask him about some of these amazing shots he took and the feats that he accomplished by delving into the wild. But I'll get enough from you, that's for sure.
Yeah, I can. I've done a lot of these with him. I can speak for him a little bit. I'm sure he won't mind.
There you go. Wow. I mean, absolutely fascinating all around. This was like the first thought that came into my head. It's like this was a journey for you guys because this took a lot of time and you literally traveled the globe on this project. Tell me kind of the origins of it, Brian. How did this whole idea of it being focused on whales, because you've worked with in the space of National Geographic, I think you've covered national parks and I think maybe sharks at some point. You've covered sort of nature in an essence, but what prompted this project to come about and to really delve into as deep as I've ever seen, no pun intended, into the lives of whales?
Well, this started with Brian Scary. I mean, he's in this world all the time. Mm-hmm. As a still photographer, talking to scientists and looking at different projects. And this idea of culture as a sort of emerged from the scientific community really recently. And it's a really big breakthrough because previous to now, we haven't talked about animals in this way at all. And we can talk about that more in a little bit, but that's really the groundbreaking aspect of the whole project. So he had this idea for a book and an article, and he went to the television side of Geographic and said, look, I think there's a one-off here. And they looked and said, well, we think there's more. And they came to Red Rock because Red Rock's Films is probably the #1 wildlife filmmaker in the US. We're still small compared to like Bristol and the BBC, but we're local and we're #1. They came to us and said if we could, could we do 5 hours? And we looked at it and kind of said, no, it needs to be 4 because narwhal are so elusive. We don't think we can do that. So this took on a life of its own where it started off as a photographer profile about Brian. And then in speaking to Brian, we all agreed that, no, it needs to be about the whales. And Geographic recognized that and gave Red Rock, increased our budget and our time, our scope of the project. So for the film, we actually used about 5% of Brian's footage from stuff that he's shot.
5%?
About 5%, which is pretty good for a still photographer. But the rest, we had to go and kind of get ourselves. So we invited him to all the shoots, but it took on such a big life of its own that he couldn't possibly come on all our shoots. I think he came on nearly half, and we did every continent, spanned the globe to get what we needed.
Wow. What fascinating, because you kind of did, you were part of everything almost on this, in a sense, cinematography, writing, the directing part. When we look at a lot of these images, right? I mean, a lot of them are from above, kind of the sky, skyline images looking down in a sense. Tell me how you guys shot that. I was so curious to see, I was trying to picture, because there's so many different angles. We have underwater, above, even on the surface kind of level. How did you guys what sort of equipment did you use to get these incredible shots? Because they're really, you couldn't probably find an angle that you guys didn't use in this, in making of this documentary. So tell me how you guys actually shot this, because I was so curious about that.
We tapped into some real key new technology because we had the same thing. It's like we don't want to be on a boat looking down at a whale. That's not the view we want. We want to be down at water level, or we want to be in the water, or we want to be right above them. So there's a lot of really good low light level cameras now that do really well in low light. So we use those when we were doing anything with any kind of depth. We built a type of crane so we could attach to a boat that held a gyro stabilized GSS housing, so we could have great stability even if we were in really turbulent cases, as we often were. And it had a 1,000mm lens, so we could look very far away and still get shots of a whale's eyeball, not disturb the whale. And the combination of all those things using red and phantom cameras really helped us on a lot of our locations. And then we developed a camera that could hang from a drone. It was important for us not to disturb the whale, so we had a drone that would be 100 feet in the air with a tether with an underwater camera on the bottom. So if the whales were doing something interesting, we could kind of fly over. They wouldn't even think of us. They might see our shadow like a seagull, and we could drop the camera in near them and kind of get this little glimpse into their world. So we utilized a bunch of different technologies, but in the end, I think it was really just the best stuff was the years of experience and the know-how from a really kind of elite team of cameramen that we assembled to kind of be able to sneak in and not use tanks. A lot of free diving, guys who are holding their breath for 4 or 5 minutes at a time, going down to sort of great depths and not disturbing the whales, but allowing not to be seen as a threat. So the whales gave us this great gift and allowed us into their world in all these different scenes we were in. So it was a real privilege to be part of get a glimpse into their lives like this.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering too. The access and the proximity of the whales. That's kind of was startling in that aspect. Like, how do you can't plan on certain things that happen underwater or with nature in that way, or with especially animals like that. How do you? I know there's something being experts and knowledge, but what are the risks in a sense when Brian goes down, takes his shots, when the divers go down, and when they come up, especially in the first episode when they're trying to unhook the whale that's stuck, with the rope and stuff? Is that kind of a wing it in a sense mentality, just like give an attempt? I mean, that's bold, I would imagine, no matter what, because you just don't know at those depths what could happen. How do you approach that? With the knowledge that but also the uncertainty that could happen among that, because I would think there's definite risk involved in this.
Yeah, well, we wrote a script. The whales didn't read it, so
great.
It went out the window first thing, and then we're always traveling with almost always traveling with a medic, just in case, and we have safety divers as well. But the truth is that the orcas are probably the most feared creature in the sea. They eat great whites for breakfast, right? These are serious animals.
Yeah.
There's never been a recorded attack of an orca on a human being in the wild, only in captivity, which is sort of blackfish, and it's a whole nother story. But in the wild, they somehow recognize us as sentient beings as well and are curious. So even when we've got the scuba on, which we didn't necessarily do for the other species, with the orca, they were kind of okay with that. And, they're making an offering to Brian of food at one stage and we learned from a scientist, Ingrid Visser, that if we go underwater and we click our fingers, it makes a sound not dissimilar to what the orca are using, and that kind of brings them in a little closer. So we had a few little tricks like that to help us out. But we had one situation, I was in Antarctica, I just got back like this time last year, and we came across, Brian wasn't with us, but we came across a lot of sleeping humpbacks. And I said to our great photographer, Ernie Kovacs, I want to get a shot of a whale's eye as it opens up in the morning from its sleep, right? And so how do you creep up on a sleeping whale? So he's in there with no tanks. We start out about 200 meters out, and he just very, very slowly inches his way to this sleeping humpback, this 35-foot giant. And he goes under, and he's looking at its eye. And it's tricky because its eyelids are not where you think. It looks like its eye's going to open there. It actually, its eyes lower down. And he just waited and waited, and eventually the whale opened up. And it was right about then I'm on the boat looking at this thinking, this could be a really bad idea.
Too late then.
They've got the largest pectoral fins of any animal, and along the edge is barnacles that are razor sharp. They use them like weapons. It could take his head off, And if you wake up in the morning and you see me with one big sort of eye like a camera right there beside you, you could be upset. And the whale woke up, saw him, and thought, oh, a playmate. And it actually spent the next 45 minutes just swimming around and playing. We did this a couple of times, and every time the reaction was the same. These curious animals, not seeing us as a threat, but seeing us like, I'll check you out and I'll play with you for a while. And there was almost like high-fiving underwater. So it was really a privilege. And it wasn't something, the fearful things in terms of our safety is more working on boats and sometimes at depth, but we didn't really do a lot of deep diving on this series with tanks. And we had medics there sort of just in case, but there was never any stage when we were really fearful of that the whales were going to harm us.
You know, I was curious about the location because you mentioned Antarctica, we have Norway, we're around the globe on this series in so many ways. How did you pick the locations? Because I imagine also that played into a part, like you're clearly there, you know, to photograph and get footage of them in action. I think we've got them literally in every sort of setting possible that you could record. But what happened what happens, maybe that's the stuff that never got filmed, that when it doesn't happen, when you go there and when you expect something, how do you kind of, I guess my question is, how do you plan for it to happen when you don't know, because it's the wild, right? It's unexpected. So how do you go to these locations and anticipate something happening and maybe it doesn't, or something happens that you didn't anticipate? How do you kind of plan around all that, especially if you're traveling worldwide?
Yeah, well, our first shoot with Brian was in Tonga, and it was a total bust. You know, the wind and weather. It was like
the weather too. Yeah.
And we went to Dominica to do some sperm whale stuff, and I was on that shoot. Brian had been there the year before. He'd spent 6 weeks there and didn't get a single usable frame of a whale. Wow. So it's a crapshoot. And what happened? And he's after one frame. We're after a whole lot of images. Right?
Yeah.
And he was on about half our shoots, nearly half, and we spent 243 days at sea.
Wow.
To film this. And we always got the sequence we wanted with each of these whales. We always got in one day. It's just that sometimes it takes a month to get that one day. So we're you know, and we don't know what we're going to get, but when you're out there for that long, the whales often surprise us, and we felt like we were getting a gift. It was almost like they knew what we were doing. It was incredible. Everywhere we went, with the exception of weather and other things that really inhibited us here and there, we were getting stuff that no one's ever seen before, and you know, new behavior. You know, the first really ever footage of a sperm whale calf suckling from its mother. You know, our scientists had never seen it before. They didn't even know how a sperm whale suckled, because it has inverted nipples, the mother, and it's just, and you know, so we were able to, you know, our freedivers went down and actually filmed that. Wow. and opened up new doors for science. And we got the first ever film of a narwhal suckling, and narwhals are really elusive and hard to do. So it's just the time out there. But the more we were out there, the more we weren't a threat, the more it seems like the whales are opening themselves up for us.
Mm-hmm. As a filmmaker, in a sense, there's always stuff on a cutting room floor. And I can imagine with the footage here gathering, that's tough to pick what you use and what you don't. Were you satisfied in the overall, what you got, you know, shot wise, or was there things that you really wanted to include that didn't fit in, that you didn't? How did you feel about the footage after all this time that you were able to get and putting into this narrative? Because it is a narrative. It's a story that we follow, you know. How did that come about for you as in the filmmaking aspect?
Yeah, so we come back with 350 hours of footage, which is actually not too bad, but the amount of terabytes was through the roof, because we're shooting 8K slow frame rates.
Oh yeah.
You know, we shot actually I've got it written here somewhere. We got 179 terabytes. You know, is what we shot, which it takes the Hubble telescope 18 years to send that much data back to Earth. You know, so so we have this incredible amount of data and footage to go through, but in a way, the whales helped craft the story for us, because we had gotten specific behaviors in each location that really just spoke to a natural kind of narrative. I think we had, you know, from when we did our rough cuts, I think we had one structural change from the beginning when we sat down the edits, like, here's how we want to construct the story, which is really unusual. It was with the orca show. We'd started off with the predation in Patagonia and getting the seals off the beach. And Geo said, you know, we might want to get to know these whales as friends first before we see them ripping apart seals. And
right.
You know, we kind of put that towards the end. And that was the only real structural change we made. But it was just, you know, we wanted to bring people, immerse them in this world of the whales in a new way. So how we started each story was really the most crucial thing to me. And, you know, the sperm whale show, we start off with a bubble. It's a 24-second shot of a bubble coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And, the sound of it is like, how boring is that going to be, right? But as it comes up, and it's quite a beautiful, fascinating shot, where, you know, I wrote the line, something like that, you know, this is the breath of a giant. And it was, and not just any giant, but a sleeping one. And we tilt down, and there's this forest of sperm whales, all asleep, all vertical, standing there in the water column, you know, motionless. And it's just like, wow. And then suddenly we're down there with the baby suckling, and our story kind of heads off from there. But we use these kind of methods just so people could really feel like they were there in this world of the whales, which is how we felt when we were filming it.
You know, I was surprised by how much emotion this picture had. I mean, you know, these are animals, like you even hear, like, I don't think I've really ever heard the whales, the noises that they make too. I wasn't familiar with it, just kind of casually observing, you know, on the outside, just kind of being interested in sea animals too. But I didn't know that how much it communicated, blew me away in that essence, and how vocal they can be too. But their family bond, and like there's some of these scenes where a calf dies and the mother stays with it and just moves it. You know, it was very emotional in a lot of ways too. Even like you feel so many things, like, oh, the trapped, you know, whale with a rope, and it's just like, wow, I can't believe like that sort of things happen, you know, by what we do, by fishing in a sense too. And it's just a lot of emotions. And then you feel for the otters too, or the sea lions, like, no, I hope they don't get eaten or run away. It really takes you on an emotional journey as a viewer. Was that kind of naturally that happened just by documenting them, or is that part of the story arc? Because there's a lot of peaks and valleys you go through emotionally just watching.
Yeah, well, that's part of our DNA at Red Rock Films. It's like our stated objective is that you shouldn't just watch a story, you should experience and feel it, you know, make those emotional connections. So we work really hard to kind of, you make those emotional connections happen so you do feel it. And I'm always amazed. I mean, I've seen these shows now so many times I've lost count as we've, you know, through the course of the production.
Oh, yeah.
I still get goosebumps 3 or 4 times a show when I'm watching some of this stuff, and it reveals itself to you, you know, these key moments. So, you know, it thrills me to hear that you're feeling the same thing. And that's important to us because, as well as making it a more fulfilling and great story to watch and a journey to go on, we care about things which we identify with. So if you're feeling emotion for a whale and connected for a whale, then you're going to want to care more about the ocean and about the whales. And this is a celebration of whales and the revelation of whale culture, which is a brand new concept. But it's also a little cry for help. You know, embedded in there are things that we are doing that are putting these whales in our oceans in jeopardy. So if you come away wanting to care a little bit more, and it's like, what can I do? Well, sometimes it's what you choose to eat. It's what you choose to throw away and how you throw it away. It's who you vote for. I mean, there are little ways that, you know, hopefully it'll stick with people. And it's just like, you know what, maybe, you know, we could be doing a bit more to help these guys out.
Yeah, no question. I think that came through. You know, when you get emotionally invested or you feel for something, you're naturally inclined to care more about it and be curious more about it. And I felt watching this, I learned a ton about the whales and just even the life. You know, it really hit me how we live in 2 worlds. There's a whole world underneath us in the oceans, in the waters, that is fascinating. You know, it might not be humans living there, but man, that's a whole almost different planet in a sense that's happening amongst us, you know, that we don't know that much about, and we don't know how much impact we have also on it too with what we do. And I think that rang to me too, you know, with the stuff we throw into the waters and the way we pollute it. It's an eye opener in a lot of ways to see that there's complete kingdoms and lives going on underneath the surface, technically.
Yeah, and I learned that from, you know, I got my diving certificate when I was like 18. And that was the thing I realized, that exactly what you're saying is like, wow, all this is going on. While I'm sleeping at night, there's a whole other thing going on here that I didn't know happened. It's like more than, it's the majority of the planet is water, and this stuff is going on, and what we do affects it. So it's definitely, it's eye-opening to realize that, and to really appreciate that we're not on this planet alone, and we need to kind of look after it to help look after ourselves.
Mm-hmm. A couple more before I wrap up. Sigourney Weaver, what a great casting that was to provide the voice and kind of go to this emotional journey by what we see on screen, but just explaining to it. I thought I didn't think of it as Sigourney Weaver. I just thought someone like when you know who it is, but then you get lost in the narrative of it, the way they tell the story. I thought she was a really great fit for this documentary and these stories, the way she spoke. I think it fit in so well with the story. And tell me about bringing her aboard to basically be the narrator for us to go on this journey with.
We've known Sigourney for a while. We were sort of collaborating on some other stuff when the Whales project came to us. And as it emerged that this is really a maternal story, these whales that are matriarch kind of systems where mothers and grandmothers are teaching their young, and they're leading the pods. And so we wanted a female narrator, and Sigourney just seemed so natural that when the time comes where Geo says, give us your 6 narrator recommendations, we just wrote Sigourney Weaver, Sigourney Weaver, Sigourney Weaver. and James Cameron obviously works with her a lot and knows her and gave her a call as well. And she didn't hesitate. And the beautiful thing is, we recorded this during COVID. So she's in her New York apartment, in her closet, surrounded by clothes to try and sort of get a decent sound quality, occasionally going to the window, opening it up and shouting to some construction guys to please keep it quiet for a while. And so she's watched the shows, and she's in there and she's reading the script, and she's at a point in the sperm whale script where, not to, spoiler alert, but when we rediscover a young whale named Hope that we sort of lose for a while. And as she starts reading it, she gets all emotional, starts to cry. And there she is, and she's crying. So we're on the other end, we're crying, and this is just the narration session. So she brings so much heart and soul and part of herself to the project. So we just couldn't be more thrilled to be collaborating with her. It was the perfect voice.
No question on that end. And finally, what's next for you? I mean, you put in a lot of time and effort to these films because they can't be told over, a couple months or whatnot. This is an investment of time and a lot of effort and work to document a film like this. What would you want to do next? What sort of topic or animal or story are you really curious that you want to dive into and tell in a similar kind of way that this story's been told?
Yeah, well, at Red Rock Films, our philosophy is that your current project is your calling card for your next project. Mm-hmm. You did a really good job on this one because then you get to do it again or do more. So we do other stuff other than wildlife. We're fully immersed. That's the majority of what we do, and it's what we're known for, and frankly, what we're good at. I'd love to do more whales. I think there's more out there to explore with that sort of emotional connection. I think there are other things like primates that have a strong emotional connection we could be talking about. We have a series coming out on Netflix this summer that I can't talk about, but it is I'm every bit as proud of that as I am of this whale series that I can't wait to share with people. So we're now sort of looking at, well, what is next? So we're talking to Geo and talking to some other folks, and we're not sure what that is yet. But we just hope it can be every bit as rewarding as this series has been.
No question. I mean, I can imagine, all that you invested and to get this to come out, even the way it looked beautiful. I'm telling you, even the landscape, I don't know, you guys got some perfect red skies and everything, on the location. So it's like, not only you're in the world of whales, but you kind of get a tour of the globe in a sense, and the beautiful landscapes of the world and in different parts of the world. I think this film really hits on so many levels. And like I said, the emotional attachment, that's what you stay with. That's why I had a ton of questions. That's a good thing for me. It's like when I come out from watching something and I'm just so curious about it and have so many things I want to know and learn about it. I think that's a fantastic job on your end, and credit to all of you that put this together.
Yeah, thank you. Our aim was to make every shot a masterpiece, and we came pretty close. I think we're really, really proud of it, and I think people will really gravitate towards it too.
No question, and a lot to learn. It's like it's a fun lesson plan. You see, if this was at school, I'd be a lot better at school if we get to watch these kind of informative films like that grasp you and catch you. But never too late.
We showed James Cameron our first rough cut of the Orca show, and we were nervous about it. Right, he's the most profitable director of all time, sure. And he's a genius, and he's watching our show. And he came back and said that he learned more about all in that hour than he has in the previous 20 years in the ocean. And we're like, done, job done.
Fantastic.
But it does. The learning sneaks up on you. It's definitely a story and a journey first. So that's we're very happy with that.
Yeah, and it's a story that also you're curious about learning and not bored from. So that's a great part of it. You're interested in the subject matter and what you're watching. So. Fantastic. I'm sure a lot of others who are going to see are going to have a similar reaction as I did and just get immersed in this world and have feelings about it. So thank you so much, Brian. Appreciate you going to overtime with me to talk about this and answering my questions. And I can't wait to see what's next for you.
No problem. Thanks, Jim. Hope to talk to you again.
Absolutely. Take care, Brian. Have a good one.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.